audience. Hello, David. Hello, P. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited also that the weekend is coming. It's going to be a long weekend. Audience, I'm going to do a quick icebreaker with my speakers before we jump into the conversation.
Uh-oh.
But I also want to ask you, audience, to go into the chat and tell us where you're calling from. We'd love to hear from you. But I have a very interesting question for my speakers before. 4th of July is coming up. I want to know, are hot dog sandwiches? Pete, hot dog sandwiches?
Hot dog's a sandwich. Definitely. Hot dog's a sandwich. David, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a form of sandwich for sure, right?
Oh yeah.
I think I read the history on hot dogs, right? And we know that the Earl of Sandwich created the sandwich for the king, and then I think
there you go.
Yeah, I think it was somebody.
If it has bread, in order to keep your fingers from getting gross, so you can play cards, then it is a sandwich. So in this case, the hot dog is a sandwich because it keeps your fingers clean. I like that, Rush.
That is exactly that's exactly
argument,
the story I'm thinking of. Is that there was like in New York in the turn of the 2 centuries ago, there was sausage vendors selling sausages, and people are like, "My fingers are all greasy. What do I do?" So you gotta wrap it in bun.
Well, talking about like fingers and keeping things clean, how do you take your hot dogs? Mustard and ketchup? Just mustard, just ketchup, nothing? How is it, David?
Mustard all the way.
See, I'm from California, so I'm gonna say ketchup, and which of course is like anyone from like my dad's from New Jersey and my mom's from Chicago, and they grew up with like mustard, and they're like, "What are you doing? Something wrong with you."
Well, out there, everyone here, I'm from Brazil. I dare everyone here to go to Google right now and Google a Brazilian hot dog. You're gonna be.
I was just gonna ask.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. But enough about hot dogs. We are here today to talk about AI and your CRM efficiency. We have those two amazing speakers. And if you don't know, BuzzBoard had a research project with MSP. So we asked about like 300 sales leaders how they're using AI and how their CRM is working for them. And this event today is like a readout of the survey and the results. And
pumped.
This event is brought to you by the team at Modern Sales Pros. And Modern Sales Pros is basically the best thing you can find out there. We are a community for sales leaders, a community for us to help sales leaders answer the toughest revenue questions out there and to help them see around corners they might not know about. And we do that through like live events like this one you're about to experience. We have in-person events, which are so much fun. We had one last week and we're looking forward for our next one. So keep an eye out for our in-person events. And we also have quarterly summits. We have one coming up. I'm going to put a link in the chat pretty soon for you to sign up for the summit coming up July 18 to 19. And we also have a forum with 30K members. With 30K members answering your questions about revenue and sales, I am pretty sure no questions will be left unanswered and no problems will be left unsolved. So if you're not yet a member of the Modern Sales Pros community, you will be invited to join right after this event. And there's one more thing that's great about Modern Sales Pros is that we have partners. And today, BuzzBoard is sponsoring this event with us. I have David here from BuzzBoard. David, can you tell us a little bit about what BuzzBoard does?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Eduardo. We're in partnership with you guys going on 3 years, maybe 4 years now. BuzzBoard, we have data on small to mid-sized businesses. And we have what we think is the biggest, bestest, baddest database on small business with over 6,000 what we call digiographic signals, in addition to firmographic and technographic. So 6,000 digiographic signals on small business to help you identify your best fit prospects, identify your ICP, do personalization with your outreach. And I'm going to invite everybody. Hopefully you're going to stay all the way through the end of the presentation anyhow. But if you're having any questions, please do stay through to the end, because at the end, we're going to have a special invitation for everybody who holds out. And I think it's going to be exciting conversation. I'm glad to have Pete here. Pete always makes things fun. We know AI and generative AI. It's a hot topic. I've got my other screen here. I've got a chart that shows generative AI VC funding so far this year. So it's going to be a good discussion. We'll have something for you at the end, which I think you'll like. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how to keep your CRM in your marketing automation platform.
Awesome.
Right? They all go together.
Awesome.
Oh,
We
yes.
love having BuzzBoard as a partner of MSP. And if you like what David just told us, there is a request a demo of our sponsor button at the top of this page. You can click and the team at BuzzBoard will get in touch with you soon. So let's now focus on this event and how to get the most out of it. This event is being recorded, so you will be able to access all the information later today. So don't stress too much if you miss something, but I'll say pay attention because it's going to be a lot of fun. But it will be recorded. You will receive an email later today with the link for the recording and some key takeaways. And also we have a Q&A function on your right-hand side. Please use it. I was talking with the speakers backstage and they were saying like, oh, I love answering questions. So send them a lot of questions and they will answer them all. They're so excited about answering questions about AI and CRM. And talking about my speakers, here they are. I have David and P. David will be our moderator for today. So David, I will pass the mic to you. You can introduce yourself, ask P to introduce himself, and then you can start a conversation. I'll be listening live, but I'll be back soon for closing remarks. All right.
Great. Thanks, Eduardo.
See you.
So my name is David Howard. I head up the marketing team here at BuzzBoard. We're headquartered here in San Francisco. Gave you the rundown on who we are, right? SMB Data, and I'm happy to have Pete joining us as well. Pete, you want to? I think everybody knows you anyway, but.
Well, what people may not realize is that I am a big CRM data strategy nerd as well. So I'm Pete Kazanji. I'm one of the founders of Modern Sales Pros. Also, my day job is as founder and CRO at Atrium, makers of data-driven sales management software. But one of the things, so the way that I got into sales was as going from a business generalist founder to a first seller and a sales manager, a sales leader, but also kind of like sales operations, revenue operations person at my last startup, TalentBin. And yeah, like I just got really fascinated by like the power of a full CRM strategy, right? Versus, because like this is a superpower that we have in the 21st century, is like there are convenient databases that can show us the humans that ought to care about our stuff. Like obviously like inbound marketing is all well and good, and thank you HubSpot for popularizing that, but you know, it's also a superpower if we can identify the people that we want to go after and go like knock on their door and be like, so, and so that's just something that has been a passion of mine for the last, like, you know, being more and better and more creative and more thoughtful and more operationally rigorous around being able to identify the total addressable market of folks that we want to go after, and then be able to go after them in the most thoughtful way possible. So, you know, I'm a data geek in that regard as well, and so I'm really pumped to be talking about these topics today, especially given the fact that like now with generative AI, all like that data undergirding, if you will, or like that data platform becomes all the more important, especially if you're going to be doing like programmatic writing of messaging or whatever. Like your data's got to be tight, and like that's a new thing, right? Like, you know, it's not just merge fields anymore, like, oh, title name, like title here or account name. It's like you're literally like, you know, potentially writing a net new email using generative AI, so your data better be tight. And so I'm excited for us to talk about those topics.
Yeah, great. So just a couple of things that came to my mind as you were talking, Pete. So, you know, we talk about CRM data. I kind of hinted at it. I mean, in my mind, CRM data, marketing operation or marketing automation platform data, I mean, it's all the same, right? So many shops have 100% sync of their data, or most of it anyway. So whether it's in your CRM or your Marketo, HubSpot, whatever, the same things apply. And yeah, we're past just simple personalization tokens.
Yep.
And, you know, if I think of all the shops I've been at, and I think, you know, throw something in the chat if this is your experience as well. I've been at so many shops where we use Salesforce, and people never get out of the contact object. Like they don't leverage even the accounts, right, and tie everything up.
Yep.
And if that's your shop, like that doesn't cut it anymore. It just doesn't, because you're looking at like, you know, intent data, right? Is this account in my TAM? Are they demonstrating intent? Or, you know, we also at BuzzBoard, we talk about need data even before they demonstrate intent. Like, can you look at all the signals about a prospect and say, they don't have intent to buy my product yet, but I know they should have it and it should be in my TAM. And at BuzzBoard, in our own production Salesforce, we are absolutely ruthless with lead to account matching, contact lead to account matching, account enrichment. And I mean, I've got a push button report that tells me how many accounts in my TAM that I run at any moment. And that's what we live and drive by. So hopefully that's inspiring some folks out there. If you're not there yet, you're going to have to be there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's just too much opportunity to like not leverage it.
Yeah. And you know, data is freely available. There's all kinds of data available. Storage isn't a problem. I mean, you can't be like, no, I can't store data because it's too expensive. You know, that can't be a problem. I just noticed there's Mike. Warehouse native apps are going to be the wave of future. Yep. Okay, very simple agenda. And we know generative AI, right? What, it's been like 6 or 7 months. ChatGPT, right? 1 million users in 5 days. Everybody's going crazy. And you know, and what is generative AI, right? It's artificial intelligence that can help generate content, text, images, video, and so on. So we can talk a little bit about why clean data is important for that. We've been touching on that. And then we'll just get into the nuts and bolts of the report. This is the 3rd time we've done this report with Modern Sales Pros. You know, we try to track changes year over year, kind of what the trends are. And the report is just trying to characterize what the Modern Sales Pro community self-reports to us. And then we try to pull it all together and surface some insights. So I would love to say I invented this slide and came up with this model, but I didn't. We got out of folks at Stanford University, you know, building blocks of AI, right? How do you get to work with AI? So they use this stool metaphor, and with this stool metaphor for AI, right? The seat of the stool is your application. So let's say in our application, we're like sales, outbound sales, SDR, go to market. That's our application. How do we use some AI? How do we use some technology to do that better, right? So platforms, right? The computation infrastructure there's been a lot of ink spilled on how much OpenAI is spending on infrastructure to support ChatGPT, to support their API access. So that stuff's come together, right? In recent times, and the algorithms, right? These are the large language models, and you know, I was reading a highly simplified explanation of how LLMs work, and even that was a super complicated document. If anybody wants to drill in, it gets technical quick, but the algorithms are there, right? And we know we've got OpenAI, we've got Google, we've got Mistral out there, so that stuff is working. So then the 3rd leg of the stool. And I'm really disappointed on Goldcast. The wobbly stool animation didn't carry forward from our slides.
I saw it. It was good. It was very wobbly.
It was good, right?
It was very wobbly. Right?
Yeah, it was very wobbly. So you know, we had a little bit of inspiration yesterday to do that. But without data, your stool's wobbly, right? And we were talking a little bit about this backstage. You go to ChatGPT, you type in your prompt, you get something back. Where do you think that stuff comes from? It's not magic. It doesn't come out of the air. Right? ChatGPT and OpenAI, they've been fed and trained, you know, essentially on the internet at large. So when you send a prompt and you can submit data with it, and your prompt tells you what you want to come back, there's a data repository that is the basis for the model coming back to you with content. So without data, it's nothing. And, you know, we've had data in our CRM, we've had personalization tokens, you know, hi, insert first name. So, you know, we're entering an era of hyper-personalization, right? And that's what the promise is of generative AI, and data is what actually enables it. So let's not lose sight of that, right? ChatGPT is nothing without data to generate output. Okay, so dipping into the report itself. So something we've always prided ourselves on at BuzzBoard, and we believe to be true, is if you're tracking accounts in your CRM, you got to have the website URL. I mean, come on, you just absolutely have to have that. At any given moment, you know, a sales rep is going to go want to look, press releases, announcements, whatever. And the way we gather data, obviously, we're looking at direct website URL, Facebook presences, you know, any digital presence that a small business has, we're looking at that. So this is interesting. 61% have more than half of their records matched to their respective URLs. But that means there's still a lot of account records out there living in CRMs that don't even have the basic URL tied to the account. So, you're a sales rep, you get in, you want to go, oh, this is the account I'm going to surface today. I'm going to make call downs. Let me go look at their website. Blank. So that's still a challenge, which I think is interesting. Shouldn't be, but it is still a challenge. And we also, by the way, we have a full report. We'll get that out to everybody. The full report's on the website. So these slides are just surfacing some of the highlights from the actual report. One thing we've studied all 3 years is just the number of CRM records. So how many records do people have? CRM databases, fewer than 100K records in the sample, half of them. And that's no change. So last year, about half of the respondents said they have fewer than 100,000 records. And this year, the same number of respondents. And, the median, did we calculate a median in the report? The median is probably more like 250, 300. And we see some reporting like over 1 million records here and there. So just characterizing the CRM space.
Yeah. On the URL thing, I think one thing back on the generative AI front, I think and I would encourage people to, like, if you haven't, go ahead and Google around how some of the sales engagement vendors like Outreach and SalesLoft are doing thoughtful things around being able to like programmatically generate content. They're doing kind of more basic stuff. And then there's like standalone vendors, folks like, Reggie AI and things like that are doing richer writing of using data, like richer writing, AI-driven writing. But the more data you have in order to drive that real-time writing, the better off you are, right? And so I think David was kind of joking about it earlier, like, hi, first name as a title, you probably did it, like deal with it. Like that's kind of the historical, state of the art was those merge tokens. Now those what used to be merge tokens will be now used to generate the content, like, hey, write a entry paragraph, an intro paragraph that is targeted to a title of account type of etc. And if you don't have that stuff tight, you're not going to be able to write a thoughtful intro paragraph. So that's just the first and foremost. Then beyond that, there will be situations wherein the AI will be able to jump out to the website in question, right? And read the website. So right now, OpenAI's ChatGPT has certain like plugin functionality that can go out, and like actually Microsoft Bing can do this, where it can run out, parse a website, and then use that as a mechanism by which to inform some question that you're asking. But you could totally imagine the scenario in which that gets used for sales engagement, where not only is it, I'm reaching out to David Howard, VP of Marketing at BuzzBoard, a software company, but specific, like that might be the fields that you have. In the future, it'll be able to run out and go, oh, well, let's go look at BuzzBoard sites. Oh, it's a software company that does data stuff for marketers and revenue operations people and salespeople. Got it, right? And bring that back. And so then if you don't have that, website URL, if you don't have that, like you're going to be stymied in your ability to do that. So the data tightness of a given record, whether it's a contact object or the account object on which it's the contact record is the child, like the opportunity cost of crappy data or like crufty data is shortly going to go up very substantially, or already has got up substantially.
Yeah, and if you extend that notion, I mean, you're starting to get to outbound sales prospecting messages that say, hey, Pete, founder and sales leader at Atrium, how are you going to contribute to the CEO's goals that were announced in the most recent quarterly report?
As an example.
As an example, right? Because like, hey, we we saw that you've got a new quarterly announcement. Your CEO has, got on the conference calls and said, this is what we're aiming towards. Pete, we can help you achieve your contribution, right? So that's a very different message.
Oh, hugely, right?
Absolutely. And if you go back to the, this current, historical state of the art personalization tokens, you're fitting personalization tokens into templated emails, right? Hi, $ first name,
yeah.
David, VP, all that stuff. We think templates are going to go away, right? Templates were how people scaled that using personalization tokens. When you can, from whole cloth, using the data, right? And think of the stool, right? Using the data, using the algorithms, using the platform. When you can whole cloth generate a hyper-personalized email that looks fresh and unique for every target individual, you don't need templates anymore. Yeah, raise your hand.
As long as the data is tight.
As long as the data is tight, right? And we all love templates, and we can have long conversations about marketing teams that create templates for sales, and sales don't like them and never use them, and so on. But okay, keeping on in the weeds with the data. So every year we ask, what types of data do you currently have against your target accounts? For this slide, we did not report the contact data point because it's basically 100%. Everybody has contacts, of course, right? So like stock and trade standard, of course we do. 45% of people say they have technology usage in their CRM, right? Another 44% say intent. Getting back, we think account priority is super duper important, right? Again, if I think of my history, and I think a lot of people, have this experience as well, particularly if you've never leveraged the account object in Salesforce, it's just always contact. Where's the lead? What's the name? What's the phone number? What's the email?
Right.
Account-based marketing, demand-based, right? They've done a great job of shifting the focus, right? Now we're looking at the total account. And particularly in long sales cycles where you need a buying council, you really need to be thinking about the account at large. And it's not just one person I need to reach, it's probably 4 people, right? I need to find the person who controls the money. I need to find the person who controls the technology security. I need to find the person who's going to use the product. So now it's a holistic account-based approach. And so this account priority score that we have here, that reflects our notion of you really need to think about who the companies are before you think about the contacts. Build your TAM, right? Your TAM is companies that fit your ICP. Then you're going after the companies. Then you're going to go after the contacts. And then you can prioritize the accounts based on the data that you have. If you have intent data, if you have need data, we characterize a bunch of signals that we have as reflecting an account's need for your product, right? We get into dialogue with BuzzBoard. We'll say what things are important to you. Here's the signals that we match. We can give you a score and then say, we're going to score every account in your database, and we'll categorize them into deciles, quartiles, give them a score and prioritize. So go after accounts that you actually care about first, that you know are a good fit. So lots of room to go still. I mean, all of those figures are still under 50%. So there's still a lot of data points that people are reporting or a lot of people reporting they don't have all the data that they would like to have.
Yeah, and I think the absence of need. This is, I mean, I was saying that I was a data modeling nerd, and I'm gonna kind of out myself here. How much so is any of these fields that are in here that can go on the account object can then be used back in the day or currently for merge fields, kind of dumb merge. We need like a term for like dumb merge fields versus like AI programmatically authored. Because I'll give you an example. So Talent Bin, my last software company, right? We sold technical recruiting software to recruiters, talent acquisition folks, or what have you. And so we actually had I mean, this was like a decade ago, right? So we actually had a bunch of offshore workers who were kind of harvesting data, and then moreover, they were manually enriching very bespoke need data. So it wasn't just like, hey, there's these 5 recruiters at this organization right here. We were doing that, but then they would also jump over to the job board, right? Like the company's job page, and essentially characterize how many open engineering roles that organization had, because if an organization had like 10 open engineering roles, that would be a lot better for us than if they only had like 1 open engineering roles. And then moreover, what the offshore workers would do is they would grab the tech stack information around, like, that they develop in, like, oh, like an iOS engineer, a Java engineer, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so we use that in like merge fields and what have you. This was actually before Outreach and SalesLoft existed. We use a marketing automation solution called Acton to kind of like as kind of like a janky outbound sales engagement light thing. But the point is that now, if you don't have that need data, right, how are you going to power a very, very thoughtful, programmatically, you know, generated email? Like, again, the opportunity cost just becomes that much more substantial, because you're not feeding the generative AI the context and the state that it needs in order to be more impactful. So then, like, yeah, maybe it'll like generate some email based on the title of the person, and like that's cute and all, but like you could do that plus the fact that the organization has like dramatic need, and now all of a sudden, like, your reply rates on those emails are gonna like be dramatically higher than if it was just like AI personalized, predicated on like title information or like industry information.
Yeah, exactly. And at BuzzBoard, we've held that if you can get need data, and if you can identify need, you can probably get a little bit ahead of your competition, because if your competition is waiting for your prospect to demonstrate intent through searches or whatever, and you know that there's a fit for your product and they have a need, then you can start proactively outreaching with hyper-personalized AI content and get to them before they're demonstrating intent. And then I've been telling this story for a while, you know,
Yeah.
we know intent data is not perfect too, right? Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if somebody looked at my intent data from my searches, they would have sworn that I intend to start an opium poppy farm. But no, I was just fact checking Ozark, right? That's all was happening. No,
Sure, buddy.
So, but highlights the point, right? I mean, you have to be careful with intent data, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, right? Like, because I think it's all about like where you like, it's a race to see who we can get at, where we can get them in the funnel.
Yeah.
And like we could wait for Google to harvest them at that last click for, I don't know, $5 or like $10 or whatever, right? Or we could be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be thoughtful about this, and I'm going to get access to them way up here at the top of the funnel, right? I might have to pay a Google tax later on or what have you, but at least I'm going to be in the consideration set, right? Because I've done the work to find folks based on external signifiers of need. So, you know, if you're not doing need, right, and instead, yeah, I like actually this model where it's just like, cool, you can pay Google through the nose and have a jump ball with the other 4 vendors that also had results right there, where the user's like command click tab, and right, and like form fill. It's like jump ball. All right, here we go. The intent is kind of a similar situation, where if everybody has intent data, it's like it's the jump ball before that jump ball, like the Google jump ball. But if you're all the way up here, and you can steal a march on the other folks who aren't like proactively engaging folks who have need but don't have intent just yet.
So final words on this topic. Another way to think about it, and I've seen this lots of times too. I've had salespeople in the past come to me and they're like, I got the RFP. And I'm like, great, how come you're not writing it? Right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? I mean, the sooner you can get in with your prospect in defining and shaping what's going to solve their problem, the better off you are. And that's where need data helps.
Yep.
Okay. So we also ask, just generally broad sentiment, how confident are you in CRM data? So very simple scale, 1 to 5, 5 being extremely confident. So single digit, 6% extremely confident in their CRM data. And half the people at 50% are kind of like in the middle, right? Mediocre. That's the green bar in the middle. So there's still, what does that mean? There's still people that are upset or dissatisfied with the data that they have and how accurate it is, how effective it is. You can see all the numbers there, right? 58% of respondents, right? Availability of data. I don't think we have it in these slides, but it's in the report. We also ask people how many different data vendors they have. It's common for people to have 2 or 3 different data vendors, Bambora for intent, and I've got Zoom info for this over here. So that's still a challenge, right? Getting all the data that you want from one place is still a challenge. And then it's 3 times as many people report low to no confidence in their data. So still a challenge there. So collectively as an industry, we've got work to do, I think. Well, we've talked about this quite a bit. I don't know if there's that much more to say, but again, maybe we just go to the chart. 41% rate, kind of mediocre in the middle. I'm satisfied with the level of personalization that I can do for my CRM, with those templates and those personalization tokens. All right, only 5% report, extremely personalized. And I mean, we know this, right? Personalization works. We know this is the whole, if you go to demand-based ABM school, right? How do you personalize your message at a company level, at a industry level, and then down to an individual level, right? All that stuff's been proven. Lots more work to do still in terms of being able to actually personalize. And now we're in a world of hyper-personalizing their outreach, their communication. And yeah, there's, we know this, right? No surprise. Poor data means poor conversion rates. Better data will bump conversion rates. And I don't know, Pete, do you want to weigh in on, is a recession ever going to come? We've been like for a year, perpetual recession, tech layoffs, right? Throughout the Bay Area, right? You want to weigh in on your sense? I mean, I'm hearing people like we want tech stack consolidation. We've laid off SDRs.
Well, certainly.
What's your sense of mitigating all that?
I think certainly people are behaving. It's kind of one of those things where, does it matter, right? Like if people are behaving in a recessionary way, but through constrained, purchasing, constrained, like less apt to take meetings, et cetera, then it kind of, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, right? And so I think what we have seen across our customer base, because Atrium has hundreds and hundreds of customers, and what we have seen is that win rates have depressed, and also meeting set rates have depressed. So like the ratio between initial account engagement and opportunity creation for like SDR teams has also compressed. And so all this just means is that you just have to really bring your A game, right? Which just puts pressure on things like personalization, content applicability, all those sort of things, because those are maybe a year ago or 18 months ago, people are like, yeah, you know what? I'm happy to take a look at whatever the most recent shiny object is. Now folks are more of the mindset of like, well, it better really be worth my time, because I know that the CFO is just going to yell at me anyhow. And so it just really puts a lot of pressure on on marketers and sellers, or marketers, sellers, sales development folks, to really make that case in a very poignant way in order to open the door initially, because people are going to be resistant, are more and more resistant to that. So, things that worked in the past won't work anymore. And so what that means is like stuff that you haven't been kind of kicking the can down the road on, around things like, need modeling, or hyper personalization, or what have you, now are something that are required in order to get those meetings on the calendar.
Yeah, and I think in that kind of environment, it's the CFO pushing back. You're not buying one more product for your tech stack. But at the same time, you've got the fewer meetings, lower take rate, longer sales cycles is pushing sales and marketing people to turn to things like generative AI solutions, hyper-personalization, and data. Like, you tell me if you agree, Penny, this is back and forth, right? It's like everything's slowing down. We need some new technology, but it darn well work for the CFO to sign off on it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Which I think, I mean, that's a little bit like more down funnel, like making that case. But you could also, imagine the up funnel version of that as well, where one of the things that I talk about with my with my sellers, but also sales development staff and marketers, is the notion of like pre-handling objections. Like if you know somebody's going to have some sort of objection, and in this case, it might be an objection to like just even taking the meeting, right? Then we can proactively handle that. And so, a really great book that I read recently, I've been having a bunch of my staff read, is the Jolt Effect, around helping people. It's by the same folks as the Challenger Sale and the Challenger Customer, but really helping folks get comfortable with a solution. And like it's kind of like the old joke, nobody got fired for buying IBM.
Yeah.
If you can characterize proactively to someone why no one got fired for taking this meeting, right? And then moreover, you might get fired for not taking this meeting because like you're going to miss a big opportunity. Now that means making sure that your content is on point and applicable to the recipient in question. And like essentially pulling things that might be more down funnel stuff like case studies or customer proof or what have you, and having them show up here, where it's like, oh, okay, well, like, I'm not in the mode of like taking meetings right now, but oh man, this was really personalized to me because I am a director of revenue operations, and it was hyper personalized, and there's a slide in the email that has customer proof data or customer proof information of a person that's got the same title as me. Okay, cool, you have my attention, I'm going to reply.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So I'm looking. I see Robert posted a question. Companies AEs never like to spend the time, money to enrich the data to get closer to 100%. So I think, Robert, you'll find in the report, they might not all be surfaced in the slides. In the report, we've got some data on, what people are spending, on, how frequently they're refreshing data, how much they're spending, and so on. And what we also see, and I'm not sure if it's in the slide, we also ask people, where does your data hygiene responsibility live? Does it live in demand generation? Does it live in revenue operations? Is it under the marketing team? So I think the answer to your question, how do we apply, how do we enrich the data? I don't think we can ask or rely on AEs or SDRs to do that. I think
No.
Well, we don't pay them commission for that, right? They get paid commission from closing, and
moreover, like, do we want to rely on that? Sorry, it's like, even if we can, like,
you can say that, but I can't.
Well, but like, do we want to rely? Sorry, what I mean by that is like, do you even want them spending their time on that? Like, in the book I wrote on early stage sales, one of the things I talk about is like where you get the information from, where you can only get it from. If you can get a piece of information from an API or a data vendor, like, and you're getting that piece of information for like cents each, then asking your staff to spend 15 seconds or a minute or whatever, and you might say like, oh, well, like, a minute's like not much. It's like, well, if like it's an account executive with a $200,000 OTE or whatever, there's 2,000 work hours in a year, like $100 an hour, and so that's like a $6 right, a $6 minute, right? Excuse me, a $3 minute, and so the point is that like, even if you could ensure perfect compliance, it just doesn't make any sense to do that. And instead, let's save the data compliance for the stuff that really matters, like MedPIC criteria, or like account planning criteria, or like those sort of things, versus like, hey, I really need you to refresh these records, and I really need you to refresh these records and make sure that, like, the employee counts are up to date. Like, that's just silly pants, right? Like, that should be coming in from an API instead.
Yeah, absolutely. And then then you get a like normalization, right? Can you have your AEs and SDRs normalize the data that they collect at scale, right? So you end up with a VP of marketing, vice president of marketing, or you end up with Nike, Comma Inc. So
yeah, it'll be a mess.
Yep. So centralize. So what's the point there? So the question was, how do we get the data enriched? Centralize. Do it at scale. Best cost-effective way to do it. So right on cue with this slide. What's impacting your ability, right? So I think this one is interesting. For only 14%, I would like to see that number lower. And whoever's in that 14%, you're going to have trouble, because if your competitor is prioritizing data for generative AI, you're going to be left behind. But almost 60%, right? Almost 60% say accuracy of data, and that's a challenge, right? Availability of data, the cost of data. Again, the full report has got some numbers on what people are spending. On the other hand, you have 72% do not see cost as a deterrent to maintaining quality data in their CRM. So, what's Gartner, I think it was Gartner always did these reports of sort of what's best in class, what do best in class companies do, right? So if we apply that kind of thinking here, the 72% represent the best in class companies. They see value in acquiring data. Just the conversation we had, they see value in centralizing the data. They see value in not having account executives spend $3, $6 minutes updating data. That's best in class practice, right? The 14% for whom data is a low priority, they don't get it. They're at risk.
Yeah.
So, look at what best in class people are doing. Best in class people are investing in data, and they're centralizing data enrichment, collection, normalization, standardization, and so on. All right, here's that pesky AI term again. So yeah, we hinted a little bit at this. How often are you enriching? And so when we do the survey, we say, how often do you enrich your database using? And we list a bunch of different people that provide data. So you can see the numbers. Almost 60% driving to refresh data. It seems to be trending. I think when we do this next year, we're going to see a big jump. That the more frequently than every month, that's going to go up. And every 3 to 6 months, the 30% will go up, the 28% will go up. Because as people, Pete, tell me if you agree or see it differently, but as people start to see the value of hyper-personalization, as they see the value of generative AI, as they're getting better response, they're going to say, oh, this data is good. Give me more of that data. Give it to me.
Yeah, I think it's also like the more you like the with fresher data and more frequently updated things, you can actually run like smarter plays. And like, so then you have to think about like, what are the datums, like the individual pieces of data, and how frequently do they change, and what is that, and how does that matter? So I'll give you an example. One of the key use cases for Atrium is we help organizations, sales managers, like measure and manage and improve all manner of sales performance, AEs, SDRs, et cetera. But a really good use case is ramping, right? And so, because during the first 6 months or 12 months of an AE or an SDR's tenure or what have you, you really have to pay attention to leading indicators, because depending on your ASP, it's going to take longer for like those deals to show up. Great. So a really phenomenal leading indicator of need for us from a prospecting standpoint is recent hires, right? How recent, like, how many new hires, how many people have been hired in the last however long, right? And so that actually changes a lot, especially in situations when like the market is shifting. So in the last 6 months, a lot of organizations have not been, last 6 to 12 months, a lot of organizations have not been hiring salespeople, right? Because people have been like, clamping down and so on and so forth. But now that interest rates rises have at least moderated, and it seems like, you know, folks are maybe getting a little bit looser, more loose with the purse strings, organizations are starting to hire again. So if we're not enriching those accounts to have indications of, oh, this organization that previously had not hired any new account executives in the trailing 90 days, they just hired a class of 5 account executives and we missed that.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's, there's meaningful opportunity costs there. And so the way to kind of think about this is, an individual's title will probably, so an individual's like org, like account, will probably change every 24 months or so, right? So like that datum is like needs to be enriched frequently. So if it's every 24 months, and that means 25% of your CRM is out of date every 6 months, right? Now if their title changes more frequently and it changes in a meaningful fashion, well, like that means enriching even more frequently than that. And then if you get down to other types of other datums, like in our example, organizational hiring, that can be changing on a quarterly basis. So if it's changing in every organization on a quarterly basis, then you kind of if you care about that datum, about
Mm-hmm.
have hired recently, then you probably need to be enriching that monthly, right? So it's almost like probably a good rule of thumb is depending on what the average kind of time to time to live of that datum is, title might be 24 months, you probably need to enrich that over 4. So if it's every 24 months, if the only datum that you care about is title, then probably you need to be enriching every 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you care about something that generally is going to be updated every 12 months, then you probably need to be enriching every quarter, because otherwise your entire CRM is going to if you after a year, your entire CRM is going to be out of date. So it really kind of, and then moreover, this kind of ties with that hyper personalization and generative AI piece, which is if you want to capture the upside of the increased reply rates, increased open rates, et cetera, then you better you're creating an onus for yourself for more frequent enrichment.
Yeah, so 2 quick thoughts. I'm also keeping an eye on the time. So applying the best-in-class framework to this chart, you want to be up in purple and ideally in the blue. And then very quickly, I'll just kind of tease a different report. We just completed some work with a graduate research team at University of San Francisco. And what we did is we surveyed a bunch of actual small business owners from our database. And we surveyed them on a bunch of data signals. And Pete, you mentioned about hiring can be an indicator. And the upshot of all of that is the hiring plans, that was part of the indicators they surveyed. And the upshot was that the types of signals that BuzzBoard pulls, including things like hiring spending plans, do become a predictor of future revenue. And so if you have small businesses that are doing things that are predictor of future revenue, that means they've got more money to spend on your product and services down the road. We'll have that report coming out in a few weeks. I just got the brief on it on Tuesday night. So just a couple slides, we're almost there. We also ask people, are you doing inbound? Are you fully HubSpotified? Are you doing outbound prospecting? About 30% say equally distributed inbound and outbound, 50% saying they're doing mostly outbound. So that also bodes well for generative AI applications, sales and marketing, prospecting, hyper-personalization, pulling data into the tool, creating some kind of content that you're going to push out to secure that meeting or get them into a conversation. And outbound's not going away, right? It simply isn't. So that's what that tells us there. Yeah, so that's the end of the formal slides. Pete, I'll offer anything else you want to throw in, and I promised a link at the end. I've got that here. I teased something, so I can speak to that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I would recommend to folks is to use the opportunity of like the current economic environment as a mechanism by which to add, like, I mean, you don't have to like boil the ocean, but just like add one more capability to your data strategy and associated outbound capabilities. Doesn't have to be like, so right now, if you're using intent but you're not using need, like maybe jump up to need. If you're not using intent but you are using technographic and firmographic, maybe consider jumping up to intent as well. So like use that as an opportunity, and then like inform, like have that go into your data strategy, and then we don't just put like data in our database just for funsies. We do stuff with it, right? And so like follow that thread all the way through to outreach and top of funnel and like mid funnel and so on and so forth. So like that would be my recommendation for folks, is to use the current moment as a mechanism by which to get like one step better in that regard.
Thanks. I'm just reading the questions. Ben asked a question about insights into percentage of accounts that get worked by salespeople, or what percent of accounts leveraged. This survey does not ask those questions. Good consideration for the next round. What we do with our accounts, and not every customer, wants to open the kimono fully on their results. But what we work to do is, with all of our customers, is how do we actually measure and calculate the lift and translate that into either a public case study or a private reference. So no, Ben, I'm sorry, we don't have that data. Happy to take that into like, how can we survey that in the next round or some follow-on survey. But what we do have, and if you want to talk to us, we'll get you talking to people. We do have some broad numbers, right? We went with this customer, they used our data. This is the improvement that they've seen since using our data. But good question, right? Who's actually, so I mean, the answer is all of them should use it, right? Shouldn't everybody use it? I mean, if it's not 100%, it should be 110% using it, right? That's your goal, right? So, yeah, great. Thanks, Ben. Okay, so here's what I teased at the beginning. I hope everybody stayed on board. So we are rolling out a generative AI layer to our platform. We are rolling it out to existing customers right now. They're getting their hands on it. It's in beta. And the link, Eduardo's got the link. You can join our wait list. So this platform is going to pair up all the data goodness that we've been talking about for BuzzBoard. We are SMB focused, small to mid-sized business, following the SBA definition of small business at 500 employees or fewer. So no, it's not for everybody, but if you care about selling to small business and you want generative AI and you understand the value of data, then I encourage you to pop on the link, fill out the wait list. And once we get through all of our beta customers and get them all happy and up and running, we're going to open up to a general availability, hopefully by August, everything going well. So again, please see the link in the chat. Join, fill out the wait list, and we'll be happy to let you know when it's generally available.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. It's just been a whirlwind, right? Like, right, 6 or 7 months since ChatGPT opened the doors for business, and yeah, so good times.
Awesome. I just dropped the link, audience, in the chat. You can join the waitlist right now. And also, if you visit the BuzzBoard booth on top of this page, you're going to see this link and some other fun stuff over there. And if you like what they were sharing here today, there's the request demo with our sponsor at the top of this page. I want to say thank you, audience, for joining us today. It was a treat to have you. Happy Thursday to everyone. If you are having a long weekend, happy long weekend. If not, I hope you enjoy the 4th of July on Tuesday. Pete and David, it's always so good to have you here. I feel prepared to go and tame my CRM right now with AI. I feel 100% prepared. BuzzBoard, thank you so much for being a partner. We love having you as a sponsor in our events. And audience, while I hang out with Pete and David backstage, the team at Modern Sales Pros will make sure that we'll receive an email later today with the key takeaways, the links that we dropped in the chat, and also the recording for this session. So you can have all the information handy when you need it. Speakers, thank you so much again. We can go hang out backstage. Bye, audience.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Pete, Eduardo. Thanks,
See ya.
everybody. Yep.